they took it so seriously. I told them, generally we only need about 3 to 5 takes of singing. And if you want to lip sync to the pre-records after that to keep, shooting the scenes, we can. And they never wanted to do that. Michael, there was one day that he had 2 singing scenes back to back, and I looked and he was singing for about 12 to 15 hours that day. And it was like 2 a.m. It was 30 something degrees outside. And he's still, after every take, asking me if he's hitting his marks and stuff. And I was like, Michael, you've been singing for 12 hours. Like, what are you talking about? No one sings that long. But he was doing it. He was giving it his all every single take. And that was so commendable to me. I just hats off to him.
Now, I know y'all heard a lot of chit-chat about this next woman that's going to join me on stage, on the radio and whatnot, right, Peanut? Yep.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yes, it was quite the scandal. It was on the radio that I stole her from behind Don Sapple's back. Well, I'm here to tell you there's nothing to worry about. It ain't true. I did it right in front of his face.
And he ain't giving her back. My mama was a beauty operator.
I'm going to get up here.
Sister can sew and can mend. My daddy owns an interest in an old sorghum mill. Just watching all that money rolling in
My sweet baby's arms.
Well, it's kind of like a sickness in that there was nothing else I could see myself doing as far as working in music. I pursued engineering first in the music industry. That's kind of how I cut my teeth, and I loved learning the technical side, and that really helped translate to working with people, and it was just another tool to be a better producer, I feel like. Every project's different, and I love that every day's different, everything's different, and it's a new thing to figure out. I am based out of Nashville. I came up working at commercial studios around town, and a couple TV shows came through. I worked on the TV show Nashville a little bit. Truthfully, I really got my feet wet a couple years ago. During the pandemic, the recording world kind of dried up because, when touring went away, people weren't making records anymore. And so the film industry seemed to keep trudging along. So that's when I linked up with T-Bone Burnett full time, and he is fully in the music world, and he really got my feet wet in that world. And we worked on a few projects together, The Old Man, a few other things that are still in the works actually. But I was like, I'm not sure if I can do this. But then once I got into it, it was like, oh, this is the same thing. It's just, terminology is a little different. And George and Tammy was the first project that I, fully headed myself. Yeah, it was completely out of my comfort zone, but it was a fun challenge, like I said, and it was the largest project I've ever been a part of. We did, 26 songs, well, closer to 30, and not even counting score or source. So it was just a huge mammoth project, but it was really fun to tackle. So I was brought on about 2.5 years ago, something like that. T-Bone Burnett was brought on for consulting. He encouraged me to kind of finish the project, and actually Jessica really encouraged me as well. She said, you should really consider music supervising. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And she was like, you're doing it, so like you're doing the job, whether you know it or not. And so I was like, oh, you're right. So I was like, okay, let's just put a title on it, Yeah, it just kind of tripped and fell into it. But like I said, it was a fun challenge, and it was something that I just couldn't say no to. And yeah. Well, pretty familiar because they are, well known in Nashville. Georgette Jones is certainly known around Nashville, their daughter, and yeah, they're legends. Billy Sherrill, their producer, also a legend. They're very well known in town. But the thing is they've always been kind of ridiculed and made fun of with their lives, with the people that they were. And the thing that I really appreciate about Abe and Jessica and everyone involved in this project is they really wanted to do them justice, and they really wanted to make them very, real humans. And I feel like this story was very dignified for them. It didn't shy away from their imperfections and their flaws, but it made them very relatable, which I really loved. It was so interesting because, obviously they are these huge, well-known actors who are very great at their craft. And when I met them, it was in a recording studio, which was out of their comfort zone, but it was my comfort zone. And so I immediately felt this need to kind of support them and not shelter them, but, just kind of wrap myself around them and make them feel supported and safe in this environment. And, we had recorded the music ahead of time, about a couple months before, and we sent it to them to practice to. And they had been taking voice lessons for about a year. And they came to Nashville for 10 days to sing, because it was also decided that we were going to try to have them sing live on set, which was a huge risk, lots of variables involved in that. And so we decided, let's at least have really good pre-records in our back pocket, so that we're prepared should, an act of God or something happen on the set and we, don't get the take that we really need. So they came to Nashville for 10 days, and that was the first time that I met them in person. And within 15 minutes of them being at the studio, we were putting them in the vocal booth. We just ripped the Band-Aid off and put them in there. Jessica was scared. Terrified. And Michael, he was nervous too, because it was like, okay, the second they start singing, it's real, like it's happening. And it was exciting, and it was cool to kind of see unfold. Jessica was smoking these, they weren't real cigarettes. They were like, I think rose hip cigarettes or something, to kind of make her voice raspy. And we did 3 rounds of singing with the songs over those 10 days, which, like I said, 26 songs, doing it 2 to 3 times. That was a lot of singing. But what it did was it ultimately prepared them for set, to where it was kind of like a little boot camp, to where when they got to set, they were ready to sing these songs. And a lot of times we had to do it to where the music was only in their ears. And so they were singing a cappella to a room full of people, which I don't know how anyone could do that. But they did it. And luckily, they had sung the song so many times at that point, they were ready to do that. 90 to 95% of what they sang on set we used. When you see a scene, that's them. We here and there, if there were issues with sound or whatever, we would take our pre-record, here and there. But it was very spot. We didn't really have to use those very much, which we were very happy about. Well, so that was a very tricky thing, right? Because we were, I live in Nashville. We're going to answer to the country community. And it's these 2 mammoth voices that are very distinct. And we knew that no one is going to, sound just like them. And if they tried to go note for note with them, we risked them sounding like a parody or an impersonation or something like that. And we wanted to shy away from that. And so it involved them inserting themselves into the singing and into these characters. And don't get me wrong, there's certainly times where they sound like these people, but it wasn't the main goal the whole time. It was more important that they insert their emotions and themselves into these scenes. And we were really happy with the line that they straddled. It was really tricky, but they did it. I just finished working on a soundtrack with T-Bone on an independent film called Downtown Owl that's going to come out, I believe, at the end of the year. And I'm still making records in Nashville. I'm in talks with a few other film projects, which I would be thrilled about. I kind of now have caught the bug. I would love to be in both worlds, and so I'm working towards that. Yeah, sniffing out what my next big project is, kind of in the film world. Truthfully, well, I love music, but also it's the people aspect of it. Art and what we do is so incredibly vulnerable and personal, and you really have to tap into someone in a really vulnerable way in order to get, their idea across. It's something different on every project. You have to really figure out what that person's communication style is, what makes them tick, and I really enjoy connecting with people in that way. And so it was one of the most unexpected things, getting into this. It's not just music, it's working with people. It's very much a customer service industry and having a bedside manner, and I actually really enjoy that. And I really enjoyed connecting with Jessica and Michael on that level. I figured out they both have different communication styles, and it was like, okay, well, what works for Jess, what works for Michael? And it was just kind of a fun thing to figure out. But I love that. I love that part of the job.